minds of WBGR Network.
Good evening. I'm Jeanette Pollard, the host of Culture, Class, and Consciousness. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. As we wind down on Black History Month, the designated month for Black history, even though Black people make history throughout the year, this is the designated month. I thought it would be appropriate to wind it down with a repeat guest who has made a name for himself in the DMV and beyond. Before I formally introduce my guest, I have one announcement that I think is very important. For those of you who might not be aware, the U.S. Supreme Court formally dismissed a case on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, in which Lee Boyd Malvo was sentenced to life without parole. If you don't remember, Lee Boyd Malvo was the 17-year-old boy who was with John Allen Muhammad back in 2002 as they rained terror throughout the DMV. And if you recall the story, Muhammad was randomly shooting people, killing them to make it seem as though when he got to his ex-wife that it would be a random act. He was caught, but not after he killed, I think, 10 people. Well, Lee Boyd Malvo, as I said, was 17 years old at the time, and the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, rather, sentenced him to 4 life sentences. Initially, I think it was the death penalty, and then it went down to 4 life without parole sentences. Well, since the Supreme Court passed a law or made it so that people who were juvenile offenders who had life sentences, they were allowed to, their sentences after, I think, 20 years, they were allowed to have those sentences only go to 20 years. So he is now 35 years old, and his life sentences without parole have been done away with in Virginia. However, he still has life sentences in Maryland. So he, I don't know if they're going to move him from Virginia to Maryland or whatever, but he is currently in Supermax in a Virginia location. And so at least he will be out of Virginia, if you will. They found that people who were sentenced to life without parole as juveniles, they found that to be cruel and unusual punishment. Yeah. So I have my own thoughts about what happened in terms of how come he didn't get the same kind of consideration of the Stockholm syndrome as some other people have. When there was a case of an older person, he was a minor at the time. There was an older person influencing him.
That's right.
So, but at least he has those life sentences without parole done away with in Virginia. Just a caution for people, to remind people that because of this coronavirus is going around, that I would caution people as a healthcare professional to please make sure you do due diligence in keeping your hands clean. You'd be surprised the number of people who come from wherever and they begin eating food or touching other people or touching their faces without washing their hands. It would be good if you carried some kind of hand sanitizer, which is only good for 5 times. That's what the public health people told me. 5 times using it, then you have to wash your hands with soap and water. But have some kind of, you cleanse your hands in this kind of environment. If you have a cold, I would or some kind of upper respiratory infection, wear a mask. You can get 50 of them for $1, $10, and it will do you good. So that's just a caution as someone who is a healthcare professional. Tonight, my guest, as we wind down, it would not be Black History Month without having the inimitable Stephen Silver, who has been my guest several times.
4 times.
Four.
This makes 4.
This makes time number 4, and we also share a birthday. His birthday is on the 24th. He and his twin, and my birthday is on February 24th. So, thank you so much, Stephen, for being able to come into the studio and share your pearls. One of the things that Stephen told me as we were talking, he said that each time he has come on the broadcast, he has grown a little bit more, and he has more insights to give us. He is. I'm going to have him introduce himself because he has gone through another change since since he was last on the broadcast, which was last February.
Yes, it was.
It was last February.
Yes, it was.
So, Stephen, please introduce yourself.
Yes. I want to say once again, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Yes. And
but you did hit me up on the 24th.
I just want to say it.
Okay. All right.
To the red, to the brown, to the yellow, to the white, to the black, to the Republicans, to the Democrats, to the saints, to the sinners, to the losers, to the winners, to the strong, to the weak, to the bold, to the meek, to the haters, to the naysayers, to the living, to the late, to the unsung, to the great, to the seers, to the Moors, to the rich, to the poor. Greetings, family and friends, colleagues and clergy, sisters, brothers, and listening agents undercover, like Brother Malcolm used to say, everybody's here. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Stephen Silver, formerly known as the American Griot, now orator, poet, activist. That makes me an Orapotist. I am your brother, your fellow freedom fighter, doing my very best to fight for the full and complete liberation, the full and complete and unadulterated liberation, the freedom, the justice, the equality of the black man and black woman caught up in the hills and hells of North America. I am a proud product of the Civil Rights Movement. I am a proud product of the Black Muslim Movement. Both movements unequivocally and equally great. I am the synthesis of Martin's love and Malcolm's hate. And for those who don't know me, for those who don't have a clue, let me say right now that I'm pleased to meet you. And for all others who just don't know it, I am the one they call the poet. Can I say a prayer?
Sure.
Open up a prayer?
Sure.
I know you're a minister, so let me take it.
Hey.
Oh, Almighty God, creator of the heavens and the earth, have pity upon thy people. Extend thy hand, thy benevolent and merciful hand to these thy children. Help the hurting, the feeble, of the likes of which there is no equal, who in your infinite wisdom will become a chosen people, a stone a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, the stones that the builders rejected. But you are not a God who cannot be touched by the feelings of our infirmities. Like David of old, I pray, hear my cry, O God of my righteousness. Help the discarded, the brokenhearted, the downtrodden, and all those seemingly forgotten. And now I pray for my people, my brothers and sisters, the black man and the black woman caught up in the hills and hells of North America. I pray that you would restore us to our original and proper place of greatness, grandeur, and glory amongst the peoples of the earth. I pray now that you would confuse and confound the wisdom of this wicked world. Make the rough places plain and the crooked places straight, so that your glory will be revealed and all flesh shall see it together. This, O Lord, is our hope. This, O Lord, is our petition. This, O Lord, is our prayer. Salutations, brothers and sisters. I didn't come out here to hear myself pontificate. I came out here to encourage and inspire and perhaps even motivate. I am not an entertainer, so you see, I didn't come out here for the applause, the cheers. I didn't come out here to play or tickle your ears. For you see, the stakes are too high. The situation too dire. Our people are suffering this very hour. So I've come to speak truth to power. Oh, I pray that I may speak with the eloquence of Dr. King, to speak with the militancy of a Malcolm, to speak with the courage of a Jonah, to speak with the ferocity of a Nat Turner. And now I draw strength for the moment from Langston Hughes, from Paul Laurence Dunbar, from Dr. Mangelo, and all my former fellow poets. And to my enemies, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you personally for coming on out of the cold and taking this butt whooping personally. In the words of James Baldwin, I'm not your Negro. I don't scratch where I don't itch. I don't dance if I don't like the music. I march to the beat of a different drum. I'm self-determined, self-motivated, self-actuated. I don't fit your stereotypes. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't use drugs. I have absolutely no need to smoke the weed. I'm a Superman. I have testicular fortitude. I don't budge. I don't bend. I don't chase women and I don't chase men. I'm not a gangbanger, but I do have gangster-like proclivities. I've learned not to shoot from the hip, but as a poet I've learned to shoot from the lip.
Thank you so much, Stephen. As I was listening to your prayer and as we have talked, you have an interesting synthesis of both Christianity, if you will, and Islam. How did that come about?
Well,
Short version.
Very short version. As a young man, I was a Christian. I turned 18 years old. I was a young deacon in a mega church, and I had a lot of responsibility for a young black man. My twin brother, he was leading praise and worship, and I was a deacon, and that was my beginning. But unfortunately, I had a major discrepancy with the church leadership that led to my expulsion that I shared with my other programs. So that led me to leave the Christian church, and I decided to embrace the Nation of Islam. I saw how during the height of the crack epidemic that they were snatching rifles and guns out the hands of dangerous drug dealers. They were actually doing something about the drug-infested communities that plagued the nation. And I said to myself, now that's my type of religion. So I embrace, I am a synthesis of Christianity and Islam. I cannot undo nor disavow my Christian upbringing, for it has made me the man that I am today. No more can I undo or disavow or extricate myself from my Muslim brothers and sisters, for that too has made me the man that I am today.
Okay. All right. I understand that you're working on a new project. Why don't you tell the viewing audience about your new project?
Sure. Again, I am Orapotist Maximus. I am the poet laureate, the chief spokesperson and founder of Jonah. Jonah is an acronym for the Judge of Nations Advocacy Headquarters, aka the Jonah Project, aka the Jonah Movement. This movement, this project, is a test and testament to the current state of the hearts and minds of white America. Its simple objective is to give white America the opportunity to be on the right side of history, to reconcile the present with the past, to reconcile the harsh history of African American chattel slavery in this country and its present day ramifications and repercussions on black life in America. Also to focus on the plight and the disintegration, or I would like to say the disintegration of the Native Americans, the indigenous people of this continent. In short, my mission is to build a coalition of all people, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, striving for the survival of diverse groups. As a moral leader, it's my job to advocate and bring awareness to what I feel to be God's judgment on America and what she must do to be saved, if indeed she can be saved at all. America, white America, you owe a debt, a karmic debt, and it's time for you to pay the piper.
When you say white America owes a debt, explain that. Are you talking about reparations?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and I will get further into.
Sure.
I just gave you the mission statement. I would like to give you the foundation, scriptural foundation,
Okay.
for the whole concept of Jonah.
The Hebrew Bible.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hebrew Bible version.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, saying, Arise, go unto Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah arose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. And the Lord sent a mighty wind into the sea, and there was a great tempest in the sea, such that the ship was broken. And the Lord prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. And the Lord spake unto the fish, and the fish vomited out Jonah unto the dry land. And the word of the Lord came unto Jonah a second time, saying, Arise, go unto Nineveh, that great city, and preach unto it the preaching that I bid thee. And Jonah arose and went to Nineveh. And the people of Nineveh believed God. And they proclaimed, Who can tell if God will not turn from his fierce anger, that we perish not? And then the people of Nineveh repented from their sins. And the Lord saw that they had turned from their evil ways. And the Lord repented of the evil that he said he would do unto them. And he did it not.
For those who may not be aware, he was paraphrasing from the Hebrew scripture of Jonah, chapters 1 through 3. How did you come about with this Jonah project? Would you say it was God inspired?
I would say it was God inspired. I'm a poet, but before I am a poet, I'm a man of God. I think it's my moral responsibility to stand up for what I believe that God says, a standard of justice. The Jonah Project, or the Jonah Movement, is perhaps the last-ditch effort, perhaps the last mass movement in America for the reconciliation of the races. The Jonah Project, the Jonah Movement, seeks to secure the resources of this nation so that so-called minority groups can survive and thrive as independent yet interdependent people. I say interdependent because in some shape, form, or fashion, we are dependent upon one another. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe it was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who said, and I quote, "We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. We're tied in a single garment of destiny, and whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." He said, "For some strange reason, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. The rich man can never be what he ought to be until the poor man is what he ought to be." And I would like to add to that, that white America can never be what it ought to be until black, brown, red, yellow America is what it ought to be. I think it is improbable, or perhaps even impossible, to extricate the presence of so-called minority groups from the fabric of America without destroying it. America, white America, you would be like a wise and prudent doctor who deems it too dangerous to operate, to extricate, for the extrication may prove fatal. Make no mistake about it, as an African American man, this is no substitute for black nationalism. But you see, I am for black nationalism as a social and political movement advocating the separation of blacks and whites. I feel that the separation of blacks and whites is not an ideal solution, but is the only realistic solution. I'm a realist. I stopped believing in the tooth fairy and Santa Claus a long time ago. I'm a realist. America was created by white people, for white people. White America has never been interested in an equal, multiracial society. I've come to the conclusion that she is too greedy to share the wealth of her nation.
Wow. So, would you say, based on what you just said, that Dr. King's idea of integration and his striving for integration was a waste of time or very detrimental to black people?
Well, Martin Luther King's movement was his truth. It was unique to him as a human being a Baptist minister. He felt that there was a level of expression that he called love that can be expressed even in the face of enemies. He got a lot of flack from the Nation of Islam and from Malcolm X during the time. Many people perceived him as being weak because of that. But this type of love that he professed was the type of love that could transform an enemy. And he felt deeply that this was his responsibility, and he took that upon himself. I don't think it was a waste of time. I think it was necessary. Like the Jonah Project, I don't think it's a waste of time. I asked that on my Facebook page. Do you think it's just a waste of time? I think that every so-called, and I'll get into this, but it's not a waste of time, because before there is a judgment, there must be a Jonah. That's my impression. That's what I feel. So I would like to go back and say some more things.
Sure.
Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, nearing the end of his mortal life, had a major change of heart in his philosophical and understanding of race relations in America. He felt that a brotherhood of races could exist under the right and proper circumstances. He felt that his demonization, or I call it the devilization, of the entire white race was logically fallacious. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the Black Muslim movement, teaches that the white man in America is not a devil, but the devil. That the devil is not a man in the center of the earth with a pitchfork and wearing red tights, but that the white man is the devil incarnate. But as many who grow in their beliefs, I use the minister Louis Farrakhan himself as an example, have moved to a more moderate and inclusive belief system. I believe in the Nation of Islam, you have black, brown, red, yellow, and white. The masses, all humanity have been attracted to the message of Muhammad. Hence, we're back to black nationalism and what I believe to be the necessity of the separation of the races if the Jonah Project fails and we're left with no other alternative. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe it was the preamble of the Constitution that says, and I quote, "When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for people to dissolve the political bands that connect us to one another, and to assume amongst the powers of the earth the separate and equal station, to which the laws of nature and nature's God, to declare the causes which compel them to the separation. As an African American male, I am offended when whites suggest that we should be the ones to leave as a result of this dilemma. Why should we, African Americans, should leave and forsake a so-called new world that we were responsible for building? I ask the question, why should the Native Americans, the indigenous people of this continent, should only live in the hearts and minds of Americans as an afterthought, as if they were no longer worthy of reclaiming their place in the sun, but to be deemed as a conquered people and noble savages? This brings us to what I feel we have to look at. I believe that good whites, if the term itself is not an oxymoron, a contradiction in terms, if given the opportunity to prove that all whites is too a fallacious concept. I am a student of history. I am not naive. I just believe that the white man in America has been nothing but a devil in the grand scheme of race relations in America. Let me say that again. That the white man in America has been nothing but a devil in the grand scheme of race relations in America. Let's look at it. Slavery, Civil War, segregation, subjugation, discrimination, gentrification. Let's look at it. America, white America, you have a history of being kidnappers, rapists, racists, robbers, liars, lynchers, intimidators, and murderers. I can go on down the list. You fit the description of a true terrorist, but you're nothing but a band of punks, a band of bums, cowards, hiding behind masks, riding horses, brandishing rifles and carrying torches. You're no good, peckerwood, redneck, pot-belly, gun-toting, tobacco chewing and smoking, carrying rifles in your laps. You look stupid wearing those pointed dunce cap, rebel rousers, burning down poor black people's houses, seething haters, masqueraders, mischief makers, no good bastards, fiendish laughers, backslashers, white crackers, Johnny come lately, overall wearing Neanderthal. In spite of the passing of time, you continue to commit your heinous crimes. You try to instill our hearts with fear. The militarization of America, the infamous riot gear. Now you unleash upon black folk your modern day weapons, your bag of tricks, police sticks, police dogs, guns with lasers, wands, batons, pepper spray, high voltage electrical tasers. You're the same people. You just go by different names, and killing black folk is still fair game. But what did we ever do to whites? What did we ever do to whites except to be black as the darkest nights? And now we're experiencing one of the greatest mass displacement of black folk this nation has ever seen. And still white America won't come clean. And when we talk of reparations, they say go figure. I don't owe nothing to some Don Negro. That's the Disney version. Don Negro.
You know, you made a comment about the separation of whites and blacks, and that we need to have our own black nation. I look back at history and the reality of when we have built separate things, like a Tulsa, and or anything else that was,
All black. Yeah.
all black, that it was still destroyed, burned down, people were murdered, Rosewood, and the list can go on and on and on and on. Would that be our separation? Would that be something that would be really viable, and would we be opening ourselves up for mass?
You asked me that question before. You said, would they do Hiroshima and Nagasaki on us?
Yeah.
And I said, we're just going to have to take that chance, because we have to have a separate land or separate territory of our own, because the white man in America we have been unable to live with him in peace, justice, and equality, and we have not found it. I would like to end by saying this, that the Jonah Project, or the Jonah movement, seeks to push this issue to rest, once and for all. Are white people in America, like the wicked city of Nineveh, deserving a final opportunity to make right the wrongs of past generations? As a righteous man, I believe that every so-called new generation should be afforded a small window of opportunity to make right the wrongs of past generations.